What are some not fun facts? For generations, the indigenous peoples of South America used blow darts laced with paralytic plant extract to hunt their prey. In the 1800s, English physicians who interacted with these indigenous South Americans recognized the possible uses of this paralytic agent, now known as tubocurarine, as an anesthetic agent for surgeries. Physicians noticed that animals under the influence of tubocurarine would become temporarily immobilized but would recover after a period of paralysis. According to these physicians, this discovery would revolutionize surgery as an anesthetic agent. So confident were they in their discovery that one of the physicians volunteered to undergo surgery under the influence of tubocurarine to demonstrate its effectiveness. Unfortunately, he failed to realize that, although the drug was an effective paralyzing agent, it did not have any effect on the sensory receptors of the body, so he felt every cut of the surgery without being able to move or do anything about it. MCAT Biology Edit. Thank you all so much for the likes and the added knowledge regarding the subject that I had no idea about. Horrifying but very interesting. The smell of vomit comes from butyric acid, as does the smell of Parmesan cheese. When given a sample of butyric acid to smell, test subjects were disgusted or pleased depending on whether they were told it was puke or parm. The TSA missed 96% of contraband during an inspection in 2015. Male bed bugs impregnate female bed bugs by penetrating the female's abdomen with his hypodermic slong. When another elephant dies, its pack make a little funeral for it. They pick rocks and put it around the body, and stand there for a while before they keep the way. Horses can't throw up. If they need to throw up, they'll die. Crabs eat their babies and sloths can die from starvation with a full stomach. If you shine a flashlight, smartphone on a newborn sea turtle for too long, which could be only minutes, it will start crawling around in circles. Known as the Ring of Death, it means that the turtle's eyesight has been permanently damaged due to mistaking your lights for the moon that guides it to the sea. By doing this, you have doomed the sea turtle to death right after birth. And #X200B, edit, information was given to me by the Sea Turtle Preservation Society in Indialantic, FL during a presentation. Armadillos can carry leprosy and can pass to humans just by being in proximity. Heroin overdose is so prevalent and dangerous because of how fast tolerance bounces back. So let's say an addict gets arrested and is in jail for a few days, weeks, whatever. If they're a heavy user, even half the dose they last used could kill them. There is a whale called 52 Blue who sings at such a strange frequency he is unable to communicate with other whales. Giraffes are considered endangered. Gingivitis is contagious. If any apocalypse happens, anyone who takes medication daily is FCKED. Forensic investigators love people with tattoos, it makes their job so much easier. When it comes to heart disease, the very first symptom in roughly 1/3 of all cases is sudden death. Meaning you could be perfectly healthy and drop dead because you had heart disease and didn't know it. Check your family history, people. Everyone probably knows this one, but the original voice actor for Ducky in the Land Before Time series was murdered by her father and then he torched the body. I believe her tombstone has Ducky on it as well as one of her lines from the movie. It's been a while since I read about it. If you have a pneumothorax, collapsed lung, even once it's resolved you can never go scuba diving. Also, there's a 1 in 3 chance it will happen again within 12 months. But yeah, I can never, ever, go scuba diving. Criminals that are considered unattractive usually receive a 50% longer jail time than attractive criminals. Sharks eat their siblings before birth equals there can be only one. Brain aneurysms can happen at any time in your life and you won't know until it's too late or if a doctor accidentally finds it. Some whales, when old, no longer have enough strength to swim for as long, so if they swim too deep, they might not have enough strength to swim back up to get air so they end up drowning. Sad face. Edit, some people smarter than I have pointed out that they technically don't drown, but instead suffocate from the lack of air. This is apparently because whales have to manually breathe instead of it being done automatically. Babies can die after consuming honey. The botulinum toxin, like the one in Botox, will paralyze their muscles causing floppy baby syndrome. Edit, to clarify, the bacterial spores, basically a super-resistant sleepy form of the microbe, are in the honey, not the actual toxin. After going into the human they start the party and produce the toxin. The wondrous smell you get while cutting grass is actually a chemical distress signal. You're smelling the silent screams of your lawn. Some dogs have to get their anal glands squeezed by veterinarians or their owners if too much fluid gets stuck in them. Dogs usually help themselves with the issue though, by pooing or rubbing their butts on the floor. Cowgirl, reverse cowgirl position is the most common reason for a man's slong to break. Hedgehogs can get a disease called wobbly hedgehog syndrome, which is an adorable name for hedgehog Ms. There's a plant in Australia called the gympie gympie tree that has hairs all over it that are small enough and are compared to hypodermic needles. And whenever a person touches the plant, these hairs stick into your skin and inject a toxin. That causes a pain compared to the affected area being covered in acid and set on fire. And what makes it worse is that the pain lasts months to years. Edit, changed spelling of some words. Japanese used to use prisoners to test how many bodies their sword was. They would stack prisoners on top of each other, and however many the sword went through was how many bodies the sword was. Gorillas will usually masturbate after battling with others. You can die from Alzheimer's due to the brain forgetting how to swallow or breathe. The sun occasionally lets out supermassive bursts of plasma energy called coronal mass ejections. These could knock out our satellites, power grid and internet for decades. One barely missed us in 2012, and another has about a 10% chance of happening in the next 10 years. You may have heard on several occasions that coal fire plants release more radiation than a nuclear plants, and it's true, but the reason why is a bit disturbing. Nuclear power plants are closed systems. So whatever radiation that comes from it has to punch its way through several tons of steel and concrete. Coal fire plants are not closed systems. They dig stuff out of the ground and burn it, releasing all waste to the air. Coal goes through very minimal processing before it's burned compared to other sources of fuel. After it is dug, the coal is washed, and mostly that gets rid of impurities such as sulfur and rocks of various minerals. However, there always remains a trace of impurities. And those impurities can be made up of naturally occurring radioactive elements, such as radium. The presence of radium in coal is usually in very small trace amounts. But when a coal fire plant burns 9,000 tons of coal every day, it adds up. Which means it releases more radiation than a nuclear power plant, and it's more dangerous because that radiation is coming from particles that are just out there, floating around in the air, which you can inhale by the way. There are a few things that, if you flush down the toilet, will most certainly make it into the hands of the operator at your local water plant. They are called the 3 centiseconds, condoms, cockroaches, and corn. An estimated 60% of heart attacks are painless. You are roughly 30 times more likely to die in a motorcycle accident than car accident. This factors in the odds of being in an accident per mile, and the odds of the accident being a fatality. The outside of your eye prevents your immune system from ever knowing about the inside of your eye. If a puncture allows the two to meet, your immune system may attack and destroy your eye as an invader. Terms for the horrified who cling to their skepticism as a shield against acknowledging this unfun fact to Google: immune privilege of the eye. You're welcome. The Spanish flu was one of the most lethal pandemics in history, edited out the most. There are lots of elements that determine the deadliness of these various diseases and too much uncertainty in death tolls to say for sure which disease was the most lethal. People who caught it bled from their ears, experienced nausea and extreme fever, their skin turned shades of blue, and experienced extreme pain from the slightest touch. It caused internal hemorrhaging. 18 to 35 adults' immune systems, which would typically be considered the strongest, would react so strongly that their bodies would fill up with antibodies and fluid, literally drowning the infected with their own defense mechanism. This happened for a specific reason. See Peakman's comment. Edit, if you are looking for a good source, The Great Influenza by John M. Barry is a good one. Dolphins will use decapitated fish heads to masturbate. If you think I am joking, look it up. The Cavalier King Charles Spaniel has been inbred to the point where about 70% show signs of syringomyelia, a condition when its skull is too small for its brain. As its brain grows, the pressure on it causes extreme distress and pain, and they flop around looking like they have a seizure until the vet drills a hole in its skull to release the pressure. Oh, and bulldogs can only give birth via C-section cause their heads are too big for their mom's hips, and pugs are struggling to breathe their whole lives. Shameless plug to go to a shelter and not a small dog breeder, but definitely also non-fun facts. An elephant can control its slong and kill you with it. Horses can also freely move their slongs, and often swing it around to masturbate. Edit, okay y'all grammar Nazis. Fixed its to its. It had been auto-corrected. Edit 2, masturbate.